New Orleans Saints suffered an embarrassing loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-3. But the big story seems to be rookie quarterback Tyler Shough replacing quarterback Spencer Rattler in the third quarter. Some have called it a benching, but is it really? I'm not so sure yet. We'll talk about the young Saints quarterbacks as well as break down the beatdown that we suffered on Sunday. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Okay, before we start, two things I really need to mention for clarity's sake. One, if you see on the rundown sheet, I use the word replacing, not bench, because to me, and this is to me, this is just for me to keep it straight in my head. I've always associated benching with a situation where you're no longer starting and you're likely never to see the field to play again, especially from a position like the quarterback position where you don't normally rotate players in and out. So I'm hesitant to use the word benching, but other people use it. And it's I mean, technically, yeah, he went to the bench because the other guy came into play. But that's why for me, I'm not using that word specifically. But I get, those that do. Yeah. Yeah, he had to go to the bench because Shuck was playing. The other thing is, and this is the most important one because I've said this pretty much all along, so just want to reiterate it before we dive into here, is I have no favorite horse in this race. Because I don't care ultimately which one of the two is the starting quarterback, as long as he is going to be the future starting quarterback for the Saints. More so, I'm worried about the long game, not the game this week. Is just the best way I can put it. Yeah, I want to win every game. Who doesn't? But what I really want is just to find the quarterback where at the beginning of every season, and this happened for close to 15, 16 years, because of our starting quarterback, we knew we had a chance to win 10 games a year. Right now, we don't have that. That's what I'm looking for. I just want one of them to be able to prove that they can do it. And then we can move on with the rest of the team from there. And if neither one proves it, I want this team to already have the plan in place going, we missed on both of them. What are we going to do? That's just how I look at it right now. So I know everyone has a different opinion on this. Let's just go ahead. Let me know in the comments because I don't think any opinion is necessarily wrong on this. And one of the things that I'll have to kind of add to this as whether I don't have a favorite horse in the race yet is it's about information also. We have plenty of information on Rattler, but the number of starts he had plus came in relief last year in the Washington game after the Hayner start. It is what it is. Let's just say there's a lot to look at there without having to spend 2 hours breaking everything down. You got almost nothing on Tyler Shough in a real legitimate NFL game. Cup of coffee and mop up duty in Seattle. That was it. It's one of the reasons why I kept saying as we piled up the losses, they were going to have to take a look at Shough. Because to me, it wasn't about benching Rattler, my terms. More about we need more information on the other guy, our second round pick, 40th overall. The current staff's guy, let's face it. And then we can really start making some decisions. So I may eventually have a favorite of the two, but right now, one of them we know next to nothing about. And I can't basically change my opinion that, and again, this is from the get go, that Rattler, because you had no information on Shough, but you had some reasonable amount on Rattler based off last year, and that he wasn't terrible in all their preparation and evaluation heading into the season. He was going to be penciled, keyword penciled, bold, all cap, italicized, underlined, highlighted, penciled in as a starter for this season. And they weren't going to play Shough till more than the coaching staff thought he was ready. So Rattler was going to have every chance to turn that pencil into ink and boldface it and capitalize it and highlight it and everything else and go, I'm the guy. And even if he did, there was probably going to be some opportunities in there when we still need information on Shough and getting to the game because There is the possibility that Rattler could have inked his name and we were still not winning enough games to even seriously consider being in the playoffs, which point you might have the conversation between the two quarterbacks going back stretch of the season. If we're sitting with only 2 wins with 4 games left to go, going, yeah, we need to get him in there and see what he's got. And we're going to give him some starts. Honestly, and this is kind of what kills me on this whole thing. So honestly, I thought Rattler was showing steady improvement over the course of the season from week one, culminating with a very good game against the Giants, kind of a breakout game against New England. Then you had the Chicago game and 4 turnovers sitting in there and not the greatest amount of play in the world. And then you had 2 costly turnovers at the beginning of the game yesterday in the first half. And you're kind of sitting in a situation where 6 quarters in a row, going back to the first drive of the Chicago game, basically 6 quarters in a row, he had a turnover. 2 road games upcoming before the bye week. Look, I'm sitting there at halftime yesterday watching the game thinking we're going to see Shough come out in the second half. I just kind of had that feeling that that's what this was setting up to be. They gave Rattler one more drive that was a turnover that was not his fault, but still, I think the opportunity was presenting itself going. And that's why I don't know if it was a benching, again, using my terminology, but as much as an opportunity to get Shough in the game and go, 17-3 at the time, so you were down 2 scores, but it was third quarter. Technically, you weren't out of it. Technically, it wasn't mop up garbage time yet. Became that a little later in the game when Shough was in there. So let's get the look. Moore said in the post-game press conference that, I thought Shough may give us an opportunity to spark the offense. And maybe that's true, but maybe my gut feeling is maybe he realized down 14, we're not coming back in this game, especially now that we're going to be basically one-dimensional on offense against that defense. So let's go ahead, get Rattler out the game, and see what Shough brings to the table. While most of our starting offense, as it was, is still out there. Tim, an evaluation. Let's get him some action. Let's almost like let him get his feet wet because Seattle doesn't count. He came in and that was garbage time. Handed the ball off 3 times, and I don't even. I guess they wanted him to be on an NFL field. That one still made no sense to me. But there was always a chance that if that's what they were doing, the spark might have happened anyway, and all of a sudden the offense comes alive and quit being undisciplined and doing stupid things, and all of a sudden we're scoring points, and hey, we're back in the game. I think that was a very non-legitimate shot of happening, or at least a teeny tiny, barely above 0% chance of happening. I'm pretty sure the staff knew it. I think everybody knew it watching the game. I mean, technically we were still in it, only down 14 with a quarter and a half left to play, but I think everybody knew, no, that we're not coming back in this one. Yeah, I think it needs to be stated that, look, outside of a few parts of a few drives, look, basically a handful of the ESPN had us at 71 offensive plays, basically a handful of the 71. Um, the offense looked good. Everybody looked good. And it was rarely the same play. But for the most part, overall, everybody in the offense was just sloppy, undisciplined football. And that's what was just extremely frustrating because you look at the numbers, you're going, not that bad. And then when you look at, and we'll talk about it in a second, what the defense gave us, going, Jesus, how are we down 14 in this game? But you didn't protect the ball. You did all kind of give Tampa Bay some credit on some of them with some running plays down and ripping balls out from behind, but still protect the ball. That's still on the player. I'm sorry. Missed blocks, drop passes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Penalty situation wasn't bad yesterday, but we managed to stall a couple drives with doing some stupid stuff penalty wise on offense. And frankly, I'm getting tired of seeing it. And I'm sure everybody else is, but none of this is necessarily all on Rattler, and I think Jonathan Vilma, who did the game yesterday, during the broadcast, did kind of bring up two things that I agree with, and that was basically, look, the poor offensive play was not all Spencer Rattler's fault. He was part of it. There were a couple plays, yeah, it's on him. It's a couple where he did everything right and somebody else screwed up badly to cost us. And you can again say that about it various times. Almost every other player on offense, few exceptions. No, they were horrible, but it it's still overall collectively over 71 plays, undisciplined, embarrassing, terrible football as an offensive group. And at some point, everybody had a hand in it. And the other thing he said, and I agree with this 100%, to kind of put a bow on all this, is I don't think Shough necessarily did anything that makes me think, yeah, he won the starting job in the second half yesterday. You know, if the magic spark would have happened, if there's, a turnover was the interception with Olave getting the ball taken away from Winfield. But I haven't watched replay on it yet, so I don't know if that's where the ball should have went or anything else. I don't really have a direct comment on that one, but he threw the ball. But I don't think, you saw enough of that. And I think just at the first look, there was a couple head turning plays and throws that he made. You went, okay. And then there was a couple that you went, yeah, no. So I don't know how that evaluation process over a quarter and a half of football, which, like I said, when he first came in, they were still playing, I guess, legitimate defense because he sparks him to a touchdown. Suddenly, you down seven going in the fourth quarter. That's a different ball game than what ultimately happened. They can't get anything real going, and when they do, they're going to kill it themselves. We're going to tack on some field goals, put this thing away, and then we're going to go into easy mode, which is basically what happened. So the back part of that evaluation process was closer to a preseason game, maybe at that point. Tampa Bay's just trying to get out of there. We got the game won, garbage time. And I'd add, he didn't take, or any other Saints players for that matter on offense, didn't even really take advantage of garbage time, which may actually be a strike against. But either way, I really want to see Rattler get the start in Los Angeles this Sunday because I want to see how he responds. If he can, if he can overcome getting taken out of the game, and I think even Vilma pointed this out in something I agree with, is that almost any NFL coach is watching a quarterback stack up that many turnovers in roughly six total quarters. Very few exceptions. They're going to get sat down for a bit, if not for the rest of the game, or depending on the situation, maybe more. We've seen that with some young quarterbacks in the past, and then they come back after a few weeks, play better. So, not unheard of. But in this situation, I think you have to see how Rattler responds after really a very bad game in Chicago and some bad plays to mar the good things that you're not really going to think about that he actually did do yesterday against Tampa Bay. So, I mean, thinking overall from Rattler, look, he had a lot of goodwill built up because I think he got progressively better from week one, topping out against the New England game until we saw him play in the last two. And burned a lot of that goodwill up in the process. There's enough there to that last start. You've had Shough coming off the bench one time and legitimately try to run the offense. So think that door maybe opens a little bit depending on what happens in LA. I don't know for sure. And hell, I could be 100% on the wrong side of this thing where they decide to go with Shough going into this week. They next couple of days of practice is going to tell a lot, but in my opinion, I think Rattler has the earn the chance one more shot. Let's see what happens. I would still have him penciled in as a starting quarterback, but play keeps declining and regressing. That door is going to keep getting opened a little more and more. So my take as it stands right now on the quarterback situation, we'll roll through and talk about the beatdown and specifically how bad the offense was and how their badness, their just horrible play ruined probably I'm pretty sure the best defensive effort that we've gotten all year out of Staley's defense. To say the Saints were embarrassed by the Buccaneers, as I did earlier, I don't think it's quite a true statement 100%. It's 50% true. The offense was. I mean, defense, probably, again, hadn't got a chance to watch all the film yet, but probably the best game that they've thrown up all year. So your offense wastes a great effort in by the defense, and it was weird because even going into this game, I'm sitting here thinking we only have two running backs on the active 53 man roster, which was Neal and Kamara. Yeah, Taysom floating around, obviously, that they could do some stuff in the running game because he's Taysom, whether he was doing it from quarterback or you lined him up in the backfield. Velus Jones was on the practice squad, so I thought he would be elevated for this game to give you a third running back. And then I think it was Saturday, it was late Friday, Saturday morning. Um, he was released so they could put a waiver claim in for some tight end off Baltimore's practice squad or had been released. I'm not really sure. So there were no other running backs available anywhere. So we're rolling in with two. Kind of felt like all along we were tipping our hand exactly what we're going to do in offense. We were going to throw it a lot more than we ran it. And we were going to probably use a lot of short passing game screens, that sort of extended running plays almost. And Todd Bowles is definitely not dumb. And I kind of had to see that one coming. So I now I get also the fact that our offense doesn't block well in the running game. The running game that gets more yards, the running back that gets more yards after contact is out for the year because damaged knee. So maybe it was the best way to try to win this game. I'm not sure, but I don't think you were going to. I don't think you were really fooling anybody. What was going to go on here, and it seemed early it didn't matter because look, you had first two times you had the ball in the first half. You had two promising drives. Felt like you should have gotten some type of points out of both of them. But the first one is killed. Rattler getting tackled after scrambling out and picking up yards, gets the ball punched out for a fumble for a turnover. The second time you were making strides to or moving the ball down the field in approaching field goal range, I believe. When you give up a sack on second down, that gives you a 3rd and 18. You can't convert it. You end up having to punt. Interestingly enough, prior to that 3rd and 18, we were 3 for 3 on third down in those two drives. We converted a 3rd and 8 with a 14-yard pass to Velus Jones, who subsequently pretty much disappeared for the rest of the game after that. And then Rattler converted a 3rd and 2 and a 3rd and 9 with a scramble and I'm pretty sure a design run to pick up the other one. But 3 for 3 on third down and two drives that you're gaining yards and come away with no points because don't protect the ball. You get a little very much undisciplined or a flat out mistake on that non-block that led to the sack. That's the kind of undisciplined, sloppy football that kills chances to win games when you start off doing some things really, really well. Just as a side note, we finished 4 of 6 in the first half on third down. They were 1 of 6. That's 67% conversion rate for the Saints, 17% for the Buccaneers, and still didn't matter. Because after those first two drives, it was pretty much all downhill from there. I, I mean, I could go through the game flow and recap my notes, but it sums up with 4 total sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown. You lost 2 fumbles. You had at least one more that I can think of that you recovered. You were saved on a touchdown by an inadvertent whistle, and you were saved on another potential fumble with maybe I'm still not sure on that one, whether or not that was a fumble or not that they called incomplete, but I think we might have got a break on that one too. They tackled us 5 times behind the line of scrimmage total, and our quarterbacks got hit. Now, number I saw was 5, and that seemed way too low. But I'll roll with it. But it seemed like they got hit a lot more than that. And you were basically semi-affected moving the ball because those 2 drives and a couple brief spurts, and other ones you did move the ball, you picked up some first downs, and then you couldn't protect the ball, or you couldn't catch the ball, or you couldn't protect the quarterback, or before the game got out of control and all we did was throw it, you couldn't give whoever was carrying the ball any space to run with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, when with all that going on, and that was all throughout the first half, you're still only down 7-3 at halftime. Our defense held them to 80 yards of offense in the first half. We had 3 sacks. We forced a fumble and recovered it. Great individual, awesome play. I shouldn't say individual because Staubert had a hand in that too with his pressure. Also, the very first sack we had. But even with one person bringing pressure, not getting the sack, somebody else was making the play. There's that type of game for our defense. Like I said, you held them to 1 of 6 on third down. And the one drive you gave up to them, you make an amazing goal line stand. Because that drive in the second quarter, you had to run stuff on 3rd and 2. You were about ready to get off the field when you got hit with the defensive hold and gave him a first down. And then after that came the big 24-yard completion to Ibuka, which we also had defensive holding on that play and subsequently declined. Next play, Tucker rips off a 15-yard run. Get down there in deep in the red zone near the goal line. You're like, oh crap, here we go. We're giving up 7 points, and this game's going to be the time is 0-0 fair. Going, we can't get down this quick. You had 4 straight run stuffs from the 1-yard line. I mean, you rarely see a goal line stand like that in the NFL. Bullitt and Shepard and Gottschall did a great job, I thought, in there. You could see them constantly on the replays when they were showing them how active they were and stonewalling and getting some penetration. Officially, Gottschall and Shepard had the tackle on first down. Gottschall and Davis had it on second down. Davis had it on third down, and then Rumpf and Shepard jumped in and stopped them on fourth down. We get the ball back. Not to go back on what the offense was doing, but just to mention that was we get a play to get out of off the 1-yard line. We've got it 2nd and 1. That's when the interception for touchdown happens. Third quarter, the defense gave up one bad drive. It was the opening drive of the third quarter. And look, that was much like the one in the second quarter. You started giving, but this one, they really gave up big plays. 4 of the 5 plays, our first 5 plays were explosive. Get him down on the goal line, and you almost pulled off the second goal line stance. Because you really wasn't doing much in the first couple of plays. Then all of a sudden, Mayfield to Tez Johnson for 16 yards. Mayfield to White for 17. Mayfield back to Johnson for 12. Mayfield to Otten for 21. That's 4 big-time plays to get them on the 1-yard line. You get 2 great on first and third down. McKinstry breaks up 2 passes to keep him out the end zone. Davis makes a hell of a run stuff on second down. Fourth down, finally, Tucker gets it in there. And then now you're overcoming some odds at 14-3 with an offense that just wasn't doing much. And even after that bad drive in the second quarter, defense played really well and only gave up 3 field goals. And they weren't chip shots. McLaughlin had to earn every one of those at 55, 52, and 54 yards. Thing is, the 52-yarder came after an interception, I believe Shuck's interception when he came in. And then you had a turnover on downs that set up his 54-yarder because they didn't exactly go on long scoring drives backed up close to their own end zone to get these field goals. They were kind of handed field position. Look, for the game, our defense held them to 152 passing yards, 88 rushing yards on 29 carries, basically 3 yards a carry. I can't think of anything remotely close to this. And there's a fine line here when you're going to talk about the defensive performance. I think you do have to walk, and I think you have to mention it. It's a very banged up. We talked about it on Friday show. It's a very banged up Tampa Bay team, especially on the offense. It's reshuffled offensive line, some backups in there. They don't have Bucky Irving, and he's a big deal when they're missing him as the effect it has on their running game, without a doubt. Kept talking about not having Mike Evans, who, when he's played this year, I'm sorry, he's not been very good. I don't know what he'd have done in this game, but definitely the emergence of Ibuka. And now it looks like Tez Johnson and other rookies about ready to join him. And you still had veterans like Shepard in that offense. I warned you, Cade Otton and Tucker were going to kill us because they seem to do it always when we play him, and they did. There was plenty enough weapons on that offense. You had to do some work to shut that down. And it was evident, I think, clearly on display on that drive to open the third quarter, where whether it was an adjustment they made or whatever was going on, all of a sudden that offense is still dangerous with explosive plays. And like I said, they had four big ones to get down there. And it took Tucker a third effort to get the 1 yard to cap it off for the touchdown on fourth down. So I want to say grain of salt about the Tampa Bay's kind of banged up injury situation. But you got to be fair. That's still a very good, very dangerous offense. So I think you also have to be fair in giving the credit to our defense. Going, look, they may not been at their 100% best, but their 90% or 85% best is still pretty damn good. And we did two drives where we didn't shut it down, and one of them we held them off the scoreboard. I think you really have to tip the hat to the defense because they showed up at home, and our offense just completely let them down. That's what we have for you today. It was a brutal game. We're still going to watch film. I know for sure I'm going to be breaking down some Shuck plays. Quite frankly, like I said earlier, we've had zero really legitimate information on him. Say legitimate preseason compared to an actual game, especially some of the earlier uh, plays he had. See what they look like. I know there'll be a little bit of Rattler in there, probably some defense, but we'll have all that together by the middle of the week. So that'll be the next video. Be on the lookout for it. Best way you can do that is make sure you hit the like, share, subscribe, all that algorithm loving stuff for me. I think the rest of the week is going to be normal, but Friday show is going to be, I think, a little about preparing for the Rams, and geez, that defensive line scary. Not to mention what Sean McVay can do on offense, but also getting close to the trade deadline. I think we're gonna, as the week progresses, and we've already started hearing some rumors come out about potential stuff going on. I think that's going to be a conversation we're going to be having on Friday as well. So keep your eye out for both of those. Till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out in Who Dat.